Meeting is now in session. This is meeting number 46 of the Special Committee on Electoral Reform. We're essentially, we finished our witness hearings last night. We had our last set of witnesses, and tonight is our big open mic evening here in Ottawa. We've had open mic sessions all over the country. We spent about 3.5 weeks traveling the country. Nous avons traversé le pays.
We crossed the country and visited the 3 territories as well as the 10 provinces. And at each stop, in addition to hearing from witnesses, we did set aside time for open mic sessions to hear from the public. So we'll proceed in the same way this evening.
On the road, when we had open mic sessions, public open mic sessions on the road, those of you who wish to speak have gone and registered, which is great. And essentially, each person at the mic has 2 minutes. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's worked very well everywhere we've gone. And while I'll call 2 people up to the mic at any given time, we'll have 2 people at the mic, the person speaking and the person waiting to speak, so that the person waiting to speak can gather their thoughts. And then when the person speaking is finished, we'll go to the person who's waiting, and then we'll call another person up to the mic that's free, and they can wait for their turn. So we have, to start off, Ms. Helen Johansson and Mr. Mark Batten-Carew. And let me just get my little timing device here.
So, ready?
Yeah, just a moment.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, just give me 1 moment to get my
One more?
stopwatch going. Go ahead,
Okay.
Ms. Johansson, please, for 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you. I think that democracy is the worst of all possible governments, except for all the others.
I've heard that.
I believe that 30% of the vote should lead you to approximately 30% of the seats. A majority government shouldn't be based on 38% of the popular vote. I do not want to have to vote strategically in order that a particular group or party does not get in. I want to be able to vote for the person with the values and interests that I have. Parliament should reflect Canada's diversity, and a minority parliament is not all that bad. It forces parties to work together, and it also, if you think back in time, our universal health care system was actually put into sway by a minority parliament. I also want to tell you that I am very concerned that the Prime Minister is on record as having expressed support for the alternative voting system, which is used to elect members in the House of Representatives in Australia. If Canada were to adopt the alternative vote, it would be a major step in the wrong direction, because alternative vote would produce a House of Commons which would, in general, be even more politically unrepresentative of the electorate than the House produced by first past the post. And I know this from personal experience because I married an Australian. And so in our family, we do know what happens in that country. I would like to add that changing Canada's voting system to a proportional one should really be a no-brainer.
Okay.
And I would say to the Liberal government, please stick to your promise and change the electoral system so that it is a proportional representative one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Johansson. I would call Mr. Stephen Nickerson to mic number 1. And I have a couple of cards here. What I'll do from time to time is when there's about 20 seconds left, if we're really going over time, I'll put the yellow card, and then that'll be followed at some point by the red card, which just signals that time is up. And pardon me? Yeah. No, we're a gentle group here, by the way. It's just.
Sorry.
Well, green card means go, and that's right up at the start. At the start, that's the green light. So we'll give the green light to for 2 minutes to Mr. Batten Carew.
Hello. My name is Mark Batten Carew. I strongly endorse the proportional representation submissions from both Fair Vote Canada and Lead Now, but I'd like to go further to impress upon you why single transferable vote plus would be the best proportional system for Canada. STV Plus is one form of the rural-urban proportional model. It uses multi-member ridings. Right away, this provides better proportionality than MMP. But in addition, one seat from each riding would be moved up to the regional level to be used as a top-up seat for even better proportionality. There are 6 reasons why STV Plus is the best proportional system. First, STV Plus uses ranked ballots along with multiple seats per riding, which enables voters to be much clearer about their intentions than they can be with a single X. Second, since STV Plus has multiple seats per riding, each of the 3 major parties will stand a good chance of getting at least 1 seat in every riding. In fact, with STV Plus, over 90% of all voters will have a local MP from their first choice party, and over 98% of all voters will have at least a regional MP from their first choice party. Third, STV Plus provides the most proportional representation in Parliament as measured by its Gallagher Index of 2.2, which was better than all 62 other systems tested by Byron Weber Becker. Fourth, STV Plus provides the strongest support for independent and minority candidates due to the fact that there are multiple local MPs, giving minorities a greater chance to win a seat. Fifth, STV Plus enables voters to hold MPs to account by giving voters the chance to change the MP they vote for while still voting for their first choice party. Sixth, STV Plus encourages a new civility in politics, both during the election and in Parliament. Since there are multiple seats to win, it will be impossible to know who to target, which will reduce negative campaigning. Also, after earning a seat, every MP will have to work with their former opponents, so there will be consequences for bad behaviour. One point about mixed member proportional. MMP is basically just first past the post with a layer of proportionality added. In effect, MMP asks, since you were forced to vote strategically at the riding level, what party did you really want to vote for? In contrast, STV asks, what combination of representatives will best satisfy the largest number of voters? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just a little note of caution to speakers. The interpreters have to keep up with. So, I mean, I understand you want to get it all in 2 minutes, but we'll give you a little flexibility for the sake of the interpreters. So you can just every now and then I can tell that they're struggling. So thank you very much, Ms. And also we're at. This is essentially we're in the House of Commons committee room, and the formal rules of committee proceedings apply, and that means that there cannot be any pictures until the gavel comes down at the end of the meeting. So if you could respect that rule, that would be greatly appreciated. So we have Mr. Nickerson here, but I'd call Mr. Wilson to mic number 2, please. Christopher Wilson and Mr. Nickerson, go ahead, please.
Okay, I submitted a brief to the has just been published, but there's not time in 2 minutes to talk about that. So I thought I'd address the question of this referendum that we keep hearing about. I assume the perceived need for a referendum is because the current House was elected using the old FTP system, and as such does not accurately reflect the will of Canadians. While I sympathize with this concern, I think it would be better if the cost, delay, and potential divisiveness of a referendum could be avoided. The highlight of the electoral reform process to date, and the decision that gave this committee its credibility, was when its makeup was adjusted to reflect the proportionality of the popular vote in the last election instead of the seat count. The crowning accomplishment of this committee could be something similar. Several briefs have been submitted to this committee extolling the simplicity and efficiency of weighted or fractional voting. It is a system based on the House as it is currently constituted, but it provides near perfect proportionality by weighting the votes of each member according to the popular vote obtained by their party. If there was to be a free vote in the House of Commons and the votes were counted in this way, the results would be almost identical to those that would be obtained by a referendum. This is the principle on which representative democracy is based, and you have the opportunity to make your work an example of what is possible if you follow through. And it is imperative that you follow through. Personal legacies are on the line. Not only will Justin find a place of honor beside his father's Bill of Rights and Freedoms, but each member of this committee and the parties they represent will be remembered for their contributions, both positive and negative. Eventually, PR will come to Canada, and this is your opportunity to get on the right side of history. I'm sure that if we adopt any sort of PR, future parliaments would, over time, come up with a system that truly meets the needs of all Canadians.
Nickerson, I'll call Gerald Ackerman to mic number 1, and now we'll hear from Mr. Christopher Wilson, please.
Hi. My name is Chris Wilson. I'm a senior research fellow with the Centre on Governance at the University of Ottawa. And from the first few comments here, I may be in the wrong place because I didn't come here to advocate for anything. I came here to learn from you. And in particular, what I'd like to learn from you is over the course of these last few months, over the course of all the submissions that you've read and received, over the course of all the comments that you've received during this time, what is it that you have learned that is different from your initial position on this subject? What has changed your mind about what's needed, what can lead Canadians into the future? I'm curious, very much curious, to hear what you have to say.
You threw us for a loop there, Mr. Wilson. That unfortunately the format doesn't lend itself to that, but I'll take a stab at it. I mean, we traveled across the country, and you know, we heard that there are a great many people who would like to see their vote better reflected in the seat count of the House of Commons. But basically, this is a highly technical issue, and we've learned about different voting systems that typically aren't discussed, and we've learned about experiences in other countries. So I think you'll find our report full of interesting facts and insights. We'll go, Mr. Ackerman, is that you, Mr. Ackerman? And I'll ask Mr. Bradley Mullen to come to mic number 2, please. Go ahead, Mr. Ackerman.
Yes, I have been interested in Canadian politics for quite some time, and I have come to understand what is wrong. What is basically wrong is that the majority of the seats in the House of Commons are controlled by those people who vote in 2 provinces, Quebec and Ontario. I'm sure this is not news to anyone. I have worked with each of the 4 other parties, not with those, over this period of time. And I actually ran for one of those parties in 2006. So that's my credentials, if you like. And that's why I'm here tonight, is to say this system stinks. It is not right. It is not fair. And most of Canadian not investors, but electors, do not get their voice heard. That has to change. And the simplest way to change it is with what John Carley will explain to you tonight, what has evolved from a group of grassroots people of various orientations politically who have put together a plan. And it's somewhat like the plan on page 3 of the handout tonight, except it isn't to do with the seats in the House of Commons, it's the votes of the representatives. And that's what's called for. That representative then, from my writing, will vote in accordance with how many of his party are represented in the entire House. That's the key. That keeps it fair, simple, and exactly what I want to have happen.
Thank you. David Schostal?
Mr. Chair, just on a point of order, I just wanted to say, Jerry mentioned he ran in 2006. He ran against me, and he was a great guy to campaign against. So not everybody is. He was a really thoughtful, intelligent candidate. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you for that, for letting us know. I was wondering where, and so it was in your writing. Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Ackerman. Mr. Mullen.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'd like to be the first to rise in favor of the first past the post system, hopefully not the last. The system is simple, straightforward, and easily understood by all voters. It does not require an entire briefing document to explain. It allows for effective majority governments and lively minority governments, which have enough threat of turnover to keep the governing party on its toes. It has produced a functional and effective multi-party system which represents the views of the vast majority of voters while keeping the loony fringes at bay. It's also contributed to a remarkably peaceful and calm and orderly political history for Canada. We are remarkably revolution and political disorder free in this country. If the government wants to hear from voters about, or from all voters about electoral systems, not merely staffers, seniors, academics, and activists, I encourage it to ask us directly, including those who favor the current system, by holding a referendum with a clear question and clear rules of procedure. Finally, if the government wants to hear from the public, why are they holding this meeting at supper time in Centre Block? That excludes quite a few people who have families or are otherwise occupied with their day, as well as having security to deter many of them. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Thank you. Well, what we just as a point of information, when we were traveling, typically a committee will hold hearings during the day and travel at night. We traveled in the morning so we could hold hearings in the afternoon and evening, so that people who are working can come out in the evening. But I guess some people prefer the afternoon. But you know, it was an attempt to open it up to as many people as possible. So that's the reason there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I'd call Mr. Denzel Feinberg to mic number 2, please. And we'll go to Mr. Schochtal.
Thank you, everyone. While I appreciate the hard work that you all do for us, I'd like to express my disappointment that so many elected representatives feel that it's okay to change the method by which we as electors elect you without our clear consent by way of a referendum. This would be akin to the owners of a business being told by the current employees what the hiring process is to be for all future employees. This committee would be better to examine alternative electoral methods, make recommendations to Canadians on what they have determined might be a better alternative for first past the post. But it must be Canadians and all Canadians who make the final decision in the end. To do otherwise would be completely undermine and violate, in my opinion, the sacred trust of the relationship between our elected representatives and those who elect them. Our elected representatives govern on matters of legislation and state on our behalf and with our consent. In my opinion, changing how we give our consent without our consent would be an abuse of the authority and trust we have given you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schochtal. I'd call Mr. Cosgrove to mic number 1 while we give the floor to Mr. Feinberg, please.
I'm Denzel Feinberg from Ottawa, formerly from Winnipeg and originally from Cape Town, South Africa. The Southern Hemisphere has some benefits. One was Australia in requiring that people have a compulsory vote. There are 4 or 5 other countries that have compulsory voting, and I don't know who they are, but your committee has probably heard about that. And that, to me, should be an essential part of the next referendum. It'll be a big thing to bring in, but I feel that would be right. It's just like giving donations of organs. Spain requires it. It's a negative option to get out of it. There are more countries that should adopt that system. If the government, Prime Minister Trudeau and his government, decide that they will not go by this particular electoral vote and promise, then I will promise to reduce my money that I've given to them. They're quite nice now that I'm 72 and there are great tax deductions on the voting system here, but I will redirect them away from the Liberals and then put them more to the Green Party, Mrs. May, because they deserve it, because they want to stick to their word. Another point is that I would prefer not to have a referendum. There are too many deplorables like me around, which means people who disagree with my way of thinking. And I trust your expertise in going to this effort in learning about the various systems. So I don't want a referendum to decide against what you have studied so hard and you've all the committee impressions that you've got from us too. Finally, I would like not to have a Wallonia or Walloons or somebody waving a feather decide that all the practical suggestions that have been heard so democratically undoes everything. So your decision is what I would take as that should count. And I thank you for all that you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ian MacDonald to mic number 2, and we'll hear from Mr. Paul Cosgrove.
Mr. Chairman, members, a number of former MPs and senators from all parties, and there were 40 in total, considered the issue of alternatives to first past the post. And that was in 1984 when looking at the issue of Senate reform. They reported that first past the post should be retained. The committee observed that it had insufficient time to adequately study jurisdictions that had opted for alternative processes of voting. But more importantly, it recommended that election process for the Commons and the Senate be the same. Your committee might wish to consider the potential effect of your recommendations on an elected Senate. Public support for an elected Senate continues today, and someday it may win the day. So I'll be very interested in your analysis of alternative voting processes in other jurisdictions, and that will assist me in deciding which way I would go on the issue, and I haven't decided one way or another. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, it's ironic that whatever the Commons decides on the issues before you, the non-elected Senate will pass judgment on the democratic elected process for the House of Commons. Thank you.
Mr. Cosgrove, I'd ask Mr. Andrew Medill to come to mic number 1. Mr. MacDonald, you have the floor.
I'd like to thank you for spending your valuable summer and evenings doing this valuable work. This has probably already been identified, but some First Nations friends of mine do not consider themselves as part of Canada and do not vote federally. So any consideration of mandatory voting should consider the First Peoples' needs. And I don't know, are we allowed to ask individual committee members a question?
Not really. It's not the format.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my question is.
But you can still ask it. Just that we're not going to get into a conversation. You can ask it rhetorically if you'd like.
Well, it's open then. My understanding from a presentation I saw in the UK Electoral Reform Society was that electoral reforms were not advised unless there was a long lead time to enable voters to become knowledgeable about the issue, and that the timeline for this election wouldn't be sufficiently long. And I'm just wondering if this was the general consensus from what most referendum expert witnesses that presented said.
I don't believe the society was for a referendum, but I mean, your point. The point is well taken. That it's important that people be adequately informed. But we'll leave that to the timelines to the committee's report. But indeed, it's important to engage the public. This is why we're doing this, and why we've had hearings both in Ottawa and across the country.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, please, to mic number 2. And we'll we'll hear from Mr. Medill.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Andrew, and right now I live here in Ontario, but I was born in Saskatchewan and raised in Manitoba. That's where my roots are. And so my own life experience, along with my studies and political interest, have shaped a strong appreciation for regional interests. In other words, the closer our system brings politics to the local level, the better. Federal politics are driven by intense disagreements over ideology or grand visions. But the best test of political success, and what should be our primary motivation, is to make life better and find the common good on the ground. Every place has its own needs and way of life, and this includes across as well as within provinces, and that deserves to be heard in the government. Everyone knows that first past the post isn't perfect, but if it does nothing else well, it keeps elected representatives in contact with their local ridings, and that's incredibly important. At the very least, any reform to the voting system should do that exact same thing, only better. And I would now like to point out that the committee responsible for the consultation, I've noticed, over half of the members are from Quebec or Ontario. The process is looking a lot like regional alienation all over again, and that's my fear. Therefore, I strongly believe that the right way to bring about change and to involve not only the provinces but every riding is to bring this question to a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medill. I'd invite Roderick Ramsden to mic number 1. Mr. Thompson, go ahead, please, for 2 minutes.
Good evening, members of the Electoral Reform Committee. My name is Nicholas Thompson, and I'm from Peterborough, Ontario. I am here tonight because I believe that the Canadian government is taking an undemocratic approach to the electoral reform. When the last election was held here in Canada, I was unable to vote as I was 17 years of age. But however, this year I am now 18, so I have the privilege, the right to vote and participate fully in Canadian democracy. Will the Electoral Reform Committee deny me my vote by not holding a referendum? Will you deny me this democratic right? Will you not let my voice be heard on this issue that I feel so strongly about? Will you disregard my concerns regarding this issue? And will you deny me my right to vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I would just mention, though, that this committee is a consultative committee and not a decision-making committee, so those decisions will belong to the government. We will be making recommendations, but we won't be taking those kinds of decisions. Ms. Darian Biddle, please, to mic number 2. And Mr. Ramsden, it's your turn.
Thank you. My name is Roderick. I think that any attempt at electoral reform must go to a referendum. I've come to this conclusion based on my experience as a resident of Ottawa Centre. I've lived in the riding my entire life, and when speaking with friends, neighbours, and family who also live in the riding, none of them knew about the consultation process that was held in Ottawa Centre. I myself only found out about the consultation process in Ottawa Centre 3 days after it occurred through a newspaper article. For this reason, I think the consultation process is fundamentally flawed, and I think that a referendum must be called prior to any changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsden. Mr. David Gibbons, if you could come to mic number 1. Ms. Biddle, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Darian Biddle, and I strongly support a referendum. The voting system belongs to the people of Canada, not just the few who can come to a committee meeting or a town hall. A referendum guarantees that everyone's voice is heard. Anything else would be undemocratic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harding, if you could come to mic number 2. Mr. Gibbons, go ahead, please.
Good evening. My family comes from a small little borough on the Quebec side of the river called Queal, Quebec. 4 years ago, I had the privilege of going to Vimy Ridge. There I saw where my uncle's brother lost his life. It had a profound impact upon me and my family. Given that he gave his life for our right to be democratic in this country and to make decisions, and given the fact that we are now approaching Remembrance Day, I'm sure you would all understand how this decision that you will make here today will impact our country for years to come. 150 years we've had the current first-past-the-post system. In 150 years, it has worked relatively well. We have produced great prime ministers, Mackenzie King, Pearson, Mulroney, etc. So with this in mind, I would ask you, I would implore you that before you do anything, please let all Canadians have a right to vote. Thank you.
Is Mr. Harding, is he in the room? No? Is it Ms. Harding or no? No, Mr. Harding, no, okay. Ms. Chelsea Mahon, and also Ms. Emma McLennan, please. If you could both come to the mics.
Hello.
Go ahead, are you Ms. Mahon? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I'm here today to express my concern that one of the fundamental traditions of our parliamentary democracy, how we elect our representatives, can be changed without the direct approval of those doing the electing. If there is a real desire among Canadians to change the way we elect you, our representatives, we should be presented with options and provided the opportunity to vote for a new system, or to keep the one we have. But it must be our choice to make, not yours. Thank you.
Must say you're all respecting the time limit. Ms. McLennan, is Ms. McLennan here? No? Okay, Mr. Carley. What is your name, sir? Are you on the list here? Okay, is Mr. Carley here? Go ahead, sir. And also Mr. Reddins.
Mic 2, all right?
Yeah.
Apparently, the submission that we made does not correspond with anything that is on the document that we received here today, because it's not multi-member proportionality, it's party proportionality in the House of Commons. Most people feel that, or a lot of people feel, that their votes don't really count. And one of the reasons is that a government can be elected in a majority government with 39.6%. We've got proof of that. We're suggesting another form, and it's single member, where everybody in a particular constituency has the right to vote for the person that they think is their best representative or the best person to represent them in the House of Commons. However, when they get to the House of Commons, they are limited to the proportionality issue, because the House of Commons should, and according to our plan, their power of the party would be related to the percentage of votes that they get across Canada. So that if a party got, for example, 50% of the vote, then they would have 50% of the power in the House of Commons. In the same line, if they only got 10% of the vote, they would still have 10% of the power. And in the case where that they only got 10%, usually they had one or less elected member. But yet the people that voted for that party are considered their vote lost. So this single member party proportional is a way to get around that without having a lot of gerrymandering. You have the same system of electing your member as you have now, but when they get to the House of Commons, their vote counts based on the percentage of votes that they got across the country. This allows for everybody to believe that their vote counts, because it does. And it can be done simply. There's a lot of people tonight have been concerned about their rights regarding referendum, and I'll expect your rights now to cut me off. So I just wanted to raise those 2 points. We've got a lot of support for it.
It sounds like weighted voting. It's basically, it's weighted voting, it sounds like.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's come up many times in our hearings.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Carley. Sorry, Mr. Reddins, I'll call Mr. Gusso to mic number 2 while you speak.
Okay.
Go ahead,
sir. First of all, I've been involved in one federal election, 3 provincial elections, and 1 municipal election. First, I'm disappointed that my MP didn't have any consultations in Ottawa South. His office response, we had one in Gatineau. That's why I want to see the statistics from the minister. As a former resident of Thunder Bay Superior West, voters feel alienated both federal and provincially by stealing the resources and commodities and get peanuts. They actually have no voice. That's why you have all the time talking about separation in Northern Ontario. Under PR, I campaigned on that, and I also believe that Indigenous people, you'll probably get a lot of cooperation between the Indigenous people if you have, at all levels, some type of representation. My background was in the automotive field. So I'm asking, when you buy a new car, what do? You want to test ride the vehicle. So what's the best way to test ride the vehicle and then go for the referendum? Thank you.
Ms. Andrea Strathdy, to mic number 1, please. Mr. Gossau, go ahead.
Yes, pardon me, I've got a slight cold. I wanted to make a representation. I'd actually submitted a brief so you people can look at it. Under the letter G, you'll find it, type of thing. I wanted to suggest, though, that it was a little different than some of the others. I tried to submit a brief that would enable a consensus, a compromise for all the members. So, for instance, for the Liberals, it agrees with what one would expect, maybe that what the Prime Minister wants is a ranked ballot, so it deals with that in terms of an optional preferential vote. In the case of Mr. Reid, it tries to accommodate his wishes. When he was the spokesperson for the Conservative Party on a bill in 2007, and it was the Senate bill for an elected Senate. So in other words, it wanted proportionality for multi-members, and actually for individual, if there was one vacancy, then it went for the ranked ballot. And obviously, I'm trying to go for proportional representation for Ms. May as well as for the New Democrats, because I think that's essential that they have to have it. And I even thought of Monsieur Thériault, because with proportional representation, you would have had un parti reconnu au Parlement.
A recognized party in Parliament and all the benefits that arise from that.
I was un greffier au bureau de la Chambre.
I was a clerk in the House. I have been retired for the past 19 years, so that's quite a long time.
Years, things like mixed member proportional, how it worked in Germany, so on and so forth. But I wasn't going for that. I was trying to do a brief that you all might be able to agree with. And the key, of course, is it's dealing with parliamentary reform, not just House reform. In other words, House reform is the preferential ballot, and Senate reform, as Mr. Reid had proposed, was the proportional representation, which might avoid a referendum.
Thank you, Mr. Gossau. Mr. Martin Laplante, to mic number 2, please. Go ahead, Ms. Strathdy.
Hello, my name is Andrea Strathdy, and I support a referendum for electoral reform. I think that it's very important that the majority of Canadians consent to and are able to understand any changes made to the electoral system. I'm also proud to be from the small town of St. Mary's, Ontario, and the rural riding of Perth Wellington, and I've always been very appreciative of the strong relationship between the Member of Parliament and the constituency, and I think that's a very important relationship to maintain, and I hope that if their electoral system does change, that will maintain that strong relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jerry Dan Kovacs, please, to mic number 1. Go ahead, Mr. Laplante.
Bonsoir.
Good evening. I'm Martin Laplante, one of the co-founders of 123 Canada, which deals with the preferential system. And I'm appearing here and want to congratulate the committee for this magnificent window on direct democracy.
was quite nice, and has examined PR in particular with great breadth and depth. But I can't say that it has seriously examined other electoral systems to the same degree. Journalists, MPs, even a lot of activists have noticed that the committee has heard from something like 100 PR proponents, but from virtually no proponent of preferential voting. So has unanimity suddenly broken out in the ranks of academia? No, of course not. We're in contact with a lot of political scientists who are proponents of preferential voting, and they were simply not given the opportunity to present evidence. The campaign platform on which this committee was based was a committee to review a wide variety of reforms, such as ranked ballots, proportional representation, mandatory voting, and online voting. And the committee has done a commendable job on 3 of those 4. In Canada, like in the US, there is a slow conversion to preferential ballots, which not everyone has noticed, starting with municipalities in Ontario, provincially New Brunswick, most likely, possibly PEI, Maine, many other states in the US are converting. There are nearly 100 countries around the world that use a preferential or 2-round system in some of its elections. So there's no lack of expertise or scholarship in this area. But unfortunately, for whatever reasons, that was not sought out as expert testimony at this committee. So it makes it a challenge for the committee and for Parliament to come to a consensus based on evidence, because so much of the evidence is missing. So that was our disappointment. Vous avez entendu les opinions.
You heard the opinions of a self-selected group, and I'm part of that group, that will tell you what they believe in and what they see as the flaw in the electoral system. But what does the electorate itself think? You can take a look at strategic voting, and that allows the voter to mitigate the distortions in the electoral system. What they seek to do is avoid the splitting of the vote. It would not be their choice. I'm a little short of time, so I thank you for your attention. Thank you, sir, for your intervention. I would ask Shannon Reeves to come to mic number 2. And now Mr. Jerry Dan Kovacs has the floor.
I'm here tonight because of Elizabeth May, who I saw on an airplane traveling from Calgary to Ottawa a few weeks ago, and she impressed upon me the importance of average Canadians such as myself making representations before this committee and making our views heard. So I'm glad to see a room filled with people here tonight. The issue is this. For those who do not like the present system of first past the post, for whatever reason, the question then becomes, what will we replace the present system with? So what I did is a little bit of research, and I compared the two, first past the post with a mixed member proportional representation system for 60 years, from 1957 to 2016, involving 20 federal elections. And here's what I determined, that if you have a mixed member proportional system, you have the first past the post, and it then addresses some of the concerns that other Canadians have regarding the fact that for whatever reason their vote's not counted, their views aren't heard, they don't have adequate representation because of the current system. My results show this. Under a single member plurality system, in the last 20 elections since 1957, we would have 11 majority governments and 9 minority governments. If you change our present system to one involving a mixed member proportional representation, for example, you will have 2 majority governments, and John Diefenbaker and Brian Mulrooney will be glad to hear that they were theirs in 1958 and 1984, and 18 minority governments over a 60-year period. And what does that mean for our system? It means that we might add members of parliament. It might cost additional resources in terms of money. that it will involve not just changing our electoral system, but it means that our parliamentary system will also change, because with more minority governments, it means that we might need more cooperative government, we might need more interaction with parliamentarians. But the bottom line is this: if you change the system, as I've suggested, the parties that stand to gain the most are the smaller third parties, such as the Green Party and the New Democratic Party. The party that loses the most is the Bloc Québécois, for obvious reasons. I have given a copy of my presentation to the clerk, and my PowerPoint presentation will hopefully be distributed to all of you.
Mr. J. Fallis, please, to mic number 1. Ms. Reeves, go ahead.
I would like to thank the committee for all the work that it's done this summer and fall. The percentage of votes a party gets should approximate the percentage of seats it gets in the House. Because of this, I'd like to go on the record by saying that I strongly support a change to a made-in-Canada system of proportional representation. While no voting system is perfect, they are on a continuum, with first past the post at the bottom of the list in terms of representation, fairness, and democracy. I'm counting on the Liberal government to live up to the pledge it made in its party platform prior to the 2015 election, and on the Special Committee on Electoral Reform to recommend a system of proportional representation in the report that it tables on December 1st. This committee has provided every opportunity for Canadians to provide feedback on electoral reform. You've heard from many thousands of Canadians, most of whom overwhelmingly support a move to PR. I trust members of Parliament of the Canadian government to represent the views of the majority of the Canadian population and to support the move to a PR voting system without holding a referendum. It would certainly be desirable for the committee to have an all-party consensus for PR, but not at the cost of a referendum that could be exploited for partisan reasons. If the committee can't come to a consensus, the recommendation of the majority of committee members for a system of proportional representation will have to be sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McKinnon, you'll go after Mr. Fallis. Go ahead, Mr. Fallis.
In reference to a report I sent you all earlier this morning, I'm going to talk about a system referred to as ABC Plus, which I think at the very least should be considered seriously by the committee. So the system offers voters the capacity to make up to 3 selections on the ballot. First choice worth 4 points, a second choice worth 2 points, and a third choice worth 1 point. In single-member ridings, the points are added up and the candidate with most points wins. In multiple-member ridings with a maximum of 6 seats per riding, each of the party candidates are listed under the same slot on a ballot. When a party wins the most points, it wins the first seat. And then its total is multiplied by a number less than 1 and compared to all the other parties to determine the next winning seat. And this continues until each seat is distributed. A couple of advantages to the system. First, having checked with a former Canadian CEO, I can confirm that the seat redistribution model that I proposed would be implementable by 2019 and that recounting could be done by hand, unlike other ranked ballot systems. Second, we can draw from experiences in 4 nations that use modified forms of the system. Third, it would improve regional representation for each of the political parties and would guarantee voters a greater capacity to influence the final result. And finally, having run this by actors on all sides of this debate, 4 of 5 political parties represented here today, and experts in the field, I can confirm with certainty that it would at least be palatable for most Canadians. The final thing I want to say is a couple months ago I was studying in the Library of Parliament and flipping through the big manual on procedure and House affairs. And I found on page something like 892 a little citation that referred to the previous Electoral Reform Committee that we had. And as someone who studied the subject extensively, I was shocked. I had never even heard of the committee before. And I guess my plea to this committee is, don't be another citation in a big green book. Be the committee that brings electoral reform to this country that clearly a lot of people want. And that might mean recommending some form of ranked ballot in coordination with proportional representation, and it might even mean recommending some referendum. But this committee needs to find unanimity if we're going to proceed further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ted Cragg, if you could go to mic number 2, please. Mr. Cragg, while we listen to Mr. MP Ron McKinnon.
Thank you, Chair. I have a really great 5-minute presentation. I'll cut it down. So I'm here today to talk about, really quickly, about a system called ranked pairs, which I emphasize is not ranked ballots. I've submitted a not very brief entitled The Ranked Pairs Project, and I urge you all to delve deeply into that document for the particulars. You've already heard, ranked pairs is a member of a class of electoral systems called Condorcet methods. You've already heard at least one witness, Dr. Maskin of Harvard on August 30th, who spoke of majority rule elections, which is just another name for bare bones Condorcet. As you may recall from Dr. Maskin's presentation, however, it's possible, though arguably rare in a real election, that bare bones Condorcet doesn't work. In order to deal with such cases, we need to complete the basic Condorcet model, and that's what ranked pairs does. In summary, ranked pairs is easy for voters to understand and do, although somewhat more work for elections officials. It can use the same ballots we use now, changing only how we mark them and how we evaluate them, though I do propose a different form of the ballot to facilitate using optical reader technology that has been tried and true for generations. In a single voting round, each voter casts a single, simple, preferential ballot from which, in a single counting round, a round-robin 1-to-1 matchup of each candidate against each other candidate ensues, holistically considering all preferences from all ballots. There's no harm whatsoever to any candidate due to the presence of similar candidates. There's no concern about vote splitting, no strategic voting, and the result will be readily accepted by most people as the true majority decision. Ranked pairs is scrupulously unbiased and confers no systemic advantage to any party. As an added bonus, we can use the exact same writings, so we don't need to wade into extensive redistributions and the time and effort that would entail, meaning that it is eminently feasible to implement well in time for the next election. While my immediate purpose is that this be a straightforward plug-in replacement to our existing first-past-the-post elections, it's important to also to note that it can be easily used to augment a mixed member PR system in whatever flavor that might end up with, or even replace a multi-representation system such as STV. It slices, it dices, it chops. I refer you again to my detailed submission, the Ranked Pairs Project, and my website, ranked-pairs.ron-mckinnon.ca, and I will be happy to make myself available to the committee should you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. I invite John Legg to mic number 1 and give the floor to Mr. Ted Cragg.
Thank you very much. Merci. Yes, my name is Ted Cragg, and I'm here to state my support for a proportional system of voting. I believe that every vote should have equal weight. I believe that Canadians deserve a system that doesn't require them to vote strategically, no matter where they live across the country. I myself have voted for many different parties, and I can sympathize with the Conservative voter in downtown Toronto, the NDP voter in Alberta, you name it, across the country. We've heard lots of stories of people having to vote strategically. The system we have now is not designed for the type of multi-party plural democracy that we live in. It's designed for a country that has two parties where you can choose one or the other. And so it is simply a question of modernity to bring us up to a system that virtually every other modern democracy uses, of course, in the world. Now, referendums sound very fair and democratic, but we can certainly see lots of results around the world where results have been skewed and they've been unexpected, of course in the UK, recently in Colombia. And I would also point out that there's certainly no guarantee that a referendum would bring the kind of turnout that you might expect. You could have a referendum with, say, 40% turnout. Does that make it more accurate or legitimate? And we saw in British Columbia where they set a particular threshold of 60% in order to pass the provincial referendum they had there. And so it begs the question, what is the most accurate system now and method of changing? Now, you have all been elected by Canadians, and you're empowered to discuss this issue and make a suggestion. And I'd like to thank the committee for your work, because I think it's been very fascinating to see how a committee that is proportional in what's otherwise a majority government situation has been able to function together, and to see you evolve in that process over the last few months. It bodes well for the future, as of course we would have more collaborative governments if we change the proportionality. So I applaud your work. This is a real landmark occasion here for Canada. We've never had anything like this at the federal level. It's impressive to see, but the work, of course, is not done. I highly recommend a proportional representation system. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lavergne, if you could come to mic number 2. Mr. Legg, go ahead, please.
Members of Parliament, I'd like to add my thanks to the many others for your hard work in Ottawa and across Canada. I'd like to skip the unfairness and anti-democratic aspects of the first-past-the-post system, of which you are all very much aware, and encourage you to adopt one of the proportional representation systems you've been studying. I'd like to quickly cover 3 subjects: the change of culture with coalition governments, why coalition governments are more efficient than our present system, and a plug for a delayed referendum. Change of culture with coalitions. I hope it's not too naive to think that parties would work better with each other because of the need to form coalitions after the election. Secondly, coalitions are more efficient because there would never be any need to reverse, replace, or amend the previous government's legislation. I don't know how much time members of Parliament are spending now on changing the legislation of the previous government, but it seems to me that this activity would be a waste of time if a coalition that represents over 50% of the population passes the legislation. There would be no need to revamp, replace, or amend the previous legislation because it would have been so well supported and represented in the House. Finally, as Mr. Howe, the professor of University of New Brunswick, said, a referendum after the fact is a better idea. I believe that New Zealand, when it adopted the system of proportional representation, included in the package a referendum after the New Zealanders had a chance to vote by the new system. I believe Canada should use that model, and I think it would be unwise to use a referendum before trying out the PR system. Thank you.
Just to be clear about this, there were actually 2 referenda in New Zealand before the system was adopted, and then 1 afterwards.
Thank you. Gary Corbett, to mic number 1, please. Mr. Lavergne, nice to see you again.
Hi, good evening. I realize this is my second chance, but I wanted to finish up some of the thoughts that I started to share with you when I testified last week and ran out of time. I also want to formally thank you on the part of Fair Vote Canada for all your work on this file. The hours and effort that you're putting into this are truly impressive, and we have nothing but respect for the collegial and consultative approach that you have taken. I know this is a crucial moment in your deliberations, and I take it for granted that you will seriously consider MMP as one of the Made in Canada options that you will be seriously looking at, and there are good reasons for doing so. But what I would like to suggest tonight is that you really consider some of the other options as well, and I'll explain why. In brief, What I would like to suggest is that you try to find a way for every sitting MP to be able to run for office again in 2019 in an area corresponding to his or her existing riding, whether it's a single-member riding or as part of a new multi-member riding. And there are two ways that this can be done. One is STV. I spoke to you the other day about STV as a model that maximizes voter choice. But the appeal of STV at this juncture for your fellow MPs is that it would in fact allow every sitting MP to run again for office in the same riding, albeit part of a multi-member version of that riding. This strikes me as a very fair type of proposition to be putting forward to sitting MPs that I think would be appreciated. We are asking MPs to do what is right for Canada, but wouldn't it be nice if they felt that they were being given a fair chance to be re-elected under the new system being proposed? You could also consider having multi-member ridings in urban areas, but keeping single-member ridings in rural areas, as Jean-Pierre Kingsley has proposed. The downside of this approach, if no additional measures are proposed, is that it would deprive rural areas of proportionality, which is unfair for them. And that's why we in Fair Vote are proposing taking it a step further by adding a small layer of top-up seats in the order of 10 to 15% of total seats under rural-urban PR. The simplest way to make way for these top-up seats without disruption would be to add new seats to the House. Anywhere from 35 to 50 new seats would suffice to do this. This would make it possible to leave existing riding boundaries, I saw it, thanks, much the same, and regrouping them into multi-member ridings in urban areas. Okay. Again, this could be politically very attractive proposition for sitting MPs. A model like this would involve a minimum of disruption, and like STV, would give every sitting MP a chance to run for office again in 2019. Okay. We trust you and are counting on you to put forward a made-in-Canada PR option that is most likely to meet with the approval of both parliamentarians and the Canadian public.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Lucas Holtluer, am I pronouncing it correctly? Holtluer, yeah. And Mr. Corbett now, please.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm Gary Corbett, just resident of Ottawa Centre. I support our current system. I think it's served us very well for the last 150 years. I see no need to change it. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into changing it or putting the thought forward, but at this time I see no benefit to the cost or any effective outcome. That's all I had to say.
Thanks very much. Mr. Holtluer, am I pronouncing it properly?
Pretty close. Holtluer, yeah.
Holtluer?
Yeah, it's a tricky
Mr.
one.
Michael Millette to mic number 1 while Mr. Holtluer goes ahead.
Yeah. Couple tries, okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, much appreciated. So yeah, I'll be quick and straight to the point. So yeah, well, I'm outlaying my points in favor of a referendum. So in the last election campaign, our Prime Minister promised that this would be the last one under the first past the post, as you all know. And along with that promise came the promise of consultation, and what better way to consult than a referendum, right? So, but first past the post has been criticized for being very undemocratic in the sense that, like, you can get 40% of the vote and still be in government, have 100% control type deal. So it would be very ironic for the current government to impose change without, like, at least the approval of the majority of Canadians. So another point to keep in mind is that this change would be huge because it would upset or like shake up a lot how the House is made up, and so that obviously has an effect on all the other lawmaking that goes on. It is also a change of constitutional proportion, so I believe it's best left up to the people under the Constitution to decide. And of course, there is precedent for referendum, as you were saying before, Mr. Reid, in New Zealand. They had 2 referendums before they chose to actually reform the system, and they've also had a referendum in Britain. And yeah, even the New Zealand one, even though it had multi-stage voting, it still produced reform. So that leads into my next point, that beneath every objection to a referendum is the fear that voters will not vote for change and for reform, but actually that is what happened in New Zealand, and they did end up getting reform. So, if you have a clear question with the referendum and provide the appropriate amount of information to Canadians, Canadians should be trusted to make this important call. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jean-Nicolas Martineau, au micro numéro 2, s'il vous plaît. Et maintenant, c'est au tour de Monsieur Michael Mallette.
Thank you. I didn't bring any notes, so before I just ramble awkwardly, one of the issues I believe the committee is looking at is electronic voting. Can I speak about this? It's a good place for it? Okay. As a software development professional, I advocate and develop open source software, and I believe very strongly that open source software such as Linux and Firefox is more secure than closed source proprietary software such as Microsoft Office or Apple iOS. One of the reasons for this is that open source software can be publicly audited and the source code can be read by anybody with the skills necessary to do that, whereas closed source proprietary software, it's a black box that nobody knows how it works. I would suggest that our current paper ballot system is publicly auditable insofar as I understand that when I put my paper ballot in a box, at the end of the day, a human being counts those paper ballots and other people are in the room watching what they do. I think we should look to the United States for what not to do in this regard. I think that they have implemented a disastrous electronic voting system that undermines their democracy. They have voting machines that are owned and operated by for-profit businesses. They're black boxes. Nobody knows how they work. There are examples of good implementations of electronic voting, such as in Estonia. Citizens in Estonia are issued ID cards that have an encryption key stored within them. I understand Canadian military personnel have such technology. It's not fanciful future technology. It exists in Canada. We can do this. That's a really important point. If I have a couple of seconds, I'd also like to say, don't like first past the post. In the last two federal elections, I voted for a losing candidate. I feel unrepresented. I believe that there are many good alternative options that the committee has been looking at. I throw my weight behind pretty much anything that's not first past the post. I would put forward, though, a little bit of a thought experiment in relation to any kind of party proportional system. Sometimes it behooves an MP during a parliament to leave their party, to cross the floor. A schism develops for whatever reason. And I would be curious in a party proportional system for an MP who is not a representative of a riding, but rather a representative of solely the ideologies of a party, what would happen if such an MP left that party and crossed the floor to become an independent? Would they be a rogue MP, or would there be a by-election, or would it go to somebody else on the list?
Okay,
it's worth consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Carl Styron? Monsieur Martineau, allez-y.
Alors, merci. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the committee for the fine work that they have done and the long hours that they have spent on this. I have 3 points to make. The first of all relates to the necessity of for changing the system. I'll come back to this. We know that Canadians want a change in the system. Mr. Frank Graves, there were ECO's surveys, and a large majority of Canadians want to see a change in the system. When I look at the turnout in the last elections, I was surprised to see that it was the highest in the past 18 years. But that leaves 30% of Canadians who did not take part. There is a problem, and I think that changing electoral systems may be part of the solution. The importance of having proportionality in a new system. We have governments that are majorities, even though they were not have a majority that voted for them. 35, 39%, and they have the majority in the House. It strikes me as being strange. Secondly, simplicity. I've been told by a number of members of Parliament and commentators that our system is simple when it is compared with the other options. I think that we should stop insulting the intelligence of Canadians. I think that we're all intelligent enough, as intelligent as the Germans, as the New Zealanders or Australians. We're certainly just as intelligent, and we have similar capacities to understand a new electoral system. Claiming that the one that we have now is a simple one compared to others, in my view, is insulting the intelligence of Canadians. That's my second point. The third point, referendum. As I said, we know that most Canadians do want to see a change. So my question is, why would we spend millions of dollars of tax-paying monies to find out what we know already? In other words, that we want to change the system. We're going to have to start knowing what system will be changed, but I hope that the Prime Minister will have a vision. He may base his view on the report of the committee and decide what he wishes to propose to Canadians, and people will have a chance to understand what is being proposed to them. Thank you, Mr. Martineau.
Number 2, Mr. Styron, go ahead.
Merci, je m'appelle Carl Styron et j'habite.
Thank you. My name is Carl Styron and I live in Ottawa-Vanier.
Ottawa-Vanier. First, thank you to all the members of the Electoral Reform Committee, all you hardworking members, and there's more. I attended your last meeting, and to your credit, I could not identify by political party who was speaking at that meeting. You all raised points that were valid and nonpartisan. Second, the percentage of the seats in Parliament should match the percentage of votes for each party. Germany did it, New Zealand did it, Scotland did it after the Second World War without a referendum, but with careful consideration by all political parties. It was the Conservatives in Germany who said, hey, wait a minute, we can't have list proportional, we need single member, so they invented mixed member proportional. As for a lead time, we've had nearly 100 years since Parliament has been discussing electoral reform. We've had the lead time. Third, and who would have thunk it, the last method proposed for proportional representation, in my opinion, turned out to be the best. Rural-urban proportional representation with top-up seats, as suggested by Réal Laverne, can keep the size of one-member rural ridings, with a nod to Nathan Cullen, whose riding is larger than Poland. And we should do that. Fourth, finally, we should design a system that should ensure that a party that just meets the threshold of nationwide votes for proportional seats always gets their matching proportion of seats. So if we had a party that met, for example, a 4% threshold of the vote, they should still get 4% of the seats. If this means enlarging the House of Commons by 10% more, that's a small price to pay for democracy.
Ms. Carole Bézère, please, to mic number 1. Mr. Westland, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm John Peter Westland, president of the Humanist Association of Ottawa. We're a secular community group that has been active since 1967. The Humanist Association of Ottawa supports the implementation before the next federal election of the mixed member proportional system proposed by the Law Commission of Canada in their 2004 report titled Voting Counts: Electoral Reform for Canada. Our membership is pleased with the government's initiative to move Canada towards a more robust democratic system. The defense of democratic principles of governance and free and open debate is one of our most cherished values. Most Canadians believe that our first-past-the-post system is archaic and that Canadian democracy would be better served by a system that introduces proportionality to voting. The mixed-member proportional system would strengthen our democracy by having the composition of Parliament more closely reflecting the electoral will of the Canadian people. The current system makes our population appear more regionally, politically divided than it really is, and a proportional system would show in the House of Commons that the major parties enjoy support across the country. An advantage of the mixed member proportional system is that it doesn't increase the size of Parliament. Many ridings would increase moderately in size, but voters would still elect a local candidate and, in addition, a regional candidate. A referendum although it will be demanded by those who oppose the change to a system with proportionality, should be avoided if possible. In the 2015 federal election, 4 of the 5 seat-winning parties ran on a platform that included change to the electoral system, and they collectively won the majority of the popular vote. In conclusion, the Humanist Association of Ottawa believes that the mixed-member proportional system proposed by the Law Commission of Canada is the best voting system for our country in the next election, but the most important point is to introduce proportionality, and other systems that allow this would also be a huge step forward for Canadian democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Aurora Arioja. Go ahead, Ms. Bezer.
Bonsoir, Madame.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to give you a sincere thanks for all the work that you did during the summer. Those summer days that you spent inside. I followed you in the mornings, afternoons, and evenings, and I attended a number of meetings, so I can certainly express a view on the amount of energy that you've consecrated to this. After all of this, I think that you've probably heard everything that has to be said on the subject. There does remain, nonetheless, a number of people who have not been heard, because in spite of the fact that they may have been invited, they did not show up. They refused to take part. I myself was told, I invited people to attend, come with me to attend certain meetings. They say that they're not interested in hearing what we have to say, even though that is not true. They did not think that you were interested in hearing the views of people, and they do not feel that their vote does have any impact or will change anything. I won't go any further on this because I think that where I'm heading. The thing that I wanted to say to you this evening, I would like you to remember the reasons why you entered politics. A long time, you felt that you were able to change the world, that you could bring about a small difference in the lives of your fellow citizens. And I think that you have a golden opportunity here to do this. So give us a real democracy, work together to form a consensus, and change the political culture that we have. To do this, you're going to have to take the bull by the horns. And that means that you're going to have to change the electoral system, because even though there may be other ways of improving the system, if we want to have a real change, we are going to have to change the way of voting. And if this has not already been done, I'd like to invite you to read Chapter 5 of Professor Yannick. I think that you probably met him in Quebec City. Yes, we met him in Quebec City. And I think that will give you a good idea of the way that you might choose to take. And if you decide to do so, then I'm sure that you would show lots of political analysis, that you make them eat their words and show that you are able to do something. Thank you. Thank you for following the work of our committee, the proceedings of our committee so assiduously. It's very encouraging.
From Ms. Arioja.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Aurora Rioja. First of all, I would like to thank the committee for the extensive work that you have been doing and continue doing to examine the options for electoral reform and to reach Canadians, to consult them on this issue. I think that every Canadian has had the opportunity so far to express their opinion, and those who have responded to your call have made the effort to educate themselves in the issue before giving their opinion to you. So I think that it's very important what you are doing, what you have done of consulting with Canadians across Canada. The best possible system that I can think of for Canada is one that involves proportional representation. It would just be fair that all voters were represented in Parliament. I think it is our right to be equally represented in Parliament. All votes should have the same weight, because at this moment they don't. And for reasons that have been already exposed by members of the public who have spoken before me, I really do not support a referendum. I don't think it is necessary after this extensive consultation, and I think that it could even be undesirable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is Ms. Olson here? Marilyn Olson, yes. Okay, please come to the mic, and you'll be followed by Ms. Sonia Smee. Go ahead, Ms. Olson.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear my name earlier. So I just scribbled a few points, came rushing over here from my workplace. So I'm a full-time worker and full family, as we all do. So I applaud your works and efforts. And just as I know you probably applaud mine for doing my little part to kind of keep the Canadian economy going. So and I'm hungry, and I was watching Mrs. May, and I was thinking, oh man, I would love to have a dumpling. No, it's okay. Thank you. At the end of the day, I just want to, so I really literally scribbled a few notes because I really didn't know how this was going to evolve, and my heart is pumping as well. So for me, voting takes place locally, as for all of us. Thus, my vote needs to count to elect my member of parliament in my riding, and that's my feeling on that point. First past the post has worked for better and sometimes for worse since Canada was formed in 1867. So we're approaching that 150-year mark. So in my view, humble view, I think it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Any changes that may need to be made should be planned. And I don't mean to be negative on this, but maybe a little bit better. I wrote down a lot better as I'm watching and getting hungry, a lot better than these public consultations have been. There was nothing in my writing that I saw, and I'm a pretty locked-in person. Nothing in my writing that was held that I know of, and not enough advertising for the one that was held in a nearby writing. The newspaper ad on Monday in the Citizen caught my attention right away, and I thought, oh shoot, Wednesday night, that was my one free night that I could go home and do laundry, so that's laundry will wait. At the end of the day, so it's not the most convenient time, and I know you're trying to do the best for all people, and that's the difficulty with trying to do that broad consult, and I totally appreciate it and get it. To say that many people aren't here because they don't want to be, I maybe take an objection to that, because many people are home doing their laundry or having their supper, and knowing that many people are maybe trying to do their voice, be their voice here. In closing then, the current government received less than 40% of the popular vote during the last election, and we've seen majority governments having similar kind of popular vote. So again, not the best, but not the worst. Ultimately, let's just wait that little. This is such a fundamental issue to our democracy that all Canadians need to have a say in this basic way we select our elected representatives. And ultimately then, I ask this committee to allow the people to decide via a referendum any changes that may be considered.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much. Is Mr. Alan White here? If you could come to mic number 1, please. Go ahead, Ms. Smee.
Good evening. Like so many of my friends in the audience, thank you. But not only for this evening, for the opportunity that you're giving Canada. I believe it's really an extraordinary opportunity that Canada has right now. I realize you're not here all of your own accord, but you're doing the legwork. I've been educating myself this summer, reading, debating over wine, tea, coffee, whatever, and in between working full-time, caring for my child family. And I've come to really perceive, I didn't really understand, but I've really come to perceive first past the post as a kind of dark ages or infancy for democracy. And I would really love and pray and hope and urge that Canada can come out of those dark ages, that your committee has shone the light on some other ways of doing things, and that we can come out of an infancy of democracy into a more mature democracy. So I have a son, our youth, his friends, they all face a precarious future, not just a precarious job market. And my heart goes out to them. I don't know how I'm going to help them. But I really believe that proportional representation can bring in a new era and can really lead the world, not just Canada, and take us out of precarious times, which right now I see nothing on the horizon for change. I see nothing to say to my son why he should engage, and I have to say, as a youth, I engaged in politics, and then I gave up. Because the first past the post, I didn't understand how it worked, but I gave up. I believe that that proportional representation in your committee, by its recommendations, can bring about an elegant, orderly, well-governed sea change that Canadians want and will benefit from. I support the rural-urban model that Fair Vote Canada has presented to you. Ranked ballots, from what I can tell, will only codify what has been strategic voting. I see it as a tool, not as proportional representation, and it would be a sad day if that's the quote-unquote change that Canadians are offered. So to see that a few are ruled by the many, it just goes against my conscience, so the rest is the logistics. What do we come up with? And I see that through proportional representation, we will have more questions, we will have more research, we will have more substantial debate, we will have less polarization, and I believe that with more members, we will also have less corruption. So with less polarization, less corruption, we have more stability.
Okay, thank you. We'll have to.
I thought it was a yellow card, not a red card.
Well, the yellow card came late, so I got.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, another 10, 15 seconds, but then we'll
Okay, the committee by its majority government has a mandate, but also by the other parties who voted for change in proportional representation. The committee has a mandate. Either way you cut the pie, you have a mandate, and I urge you to heed that. Thank you.
Mr. Matthew Hawk. Is Mr. Matthew Hawk in the room? Go ahead, Mr. White.
Yes, good evening. My name's Alan White. I met with my MP as long ago as the 1970s to urge for electoral reform, and since then I've been advocating for ranked ballots and so on through the years. However, this summer I've been reading all I can get, and I've been going to various meetings and so on, and I'm now convinced that proportional representation is a preferred option. I am concerned, though, that with all the nuances of the various systems proposed, that it's fairly complex and intimidating to people trying to learn it, trying to understand it. I'm rather concerned that this could cause actually a reduction in participation rather than the increase that we'd all like to see. What I think I'd like to do is just summarize quickly 4 points that came out of one of the constituency meetings that I attended, which had a general consensus. I think one of those points is that we supported mandatory voting or possibly an incentive to vote as a way of increasing the vote and making people realize that voting is a civic duty. But with the mandatory requirement there, we felt that there should be a none of the above option included so that people don't have to spoil their ballot. We support returning to giving the smaller parties, or giving all the parties, funding related to the votes that they receive, similar to the system that was in place a few years ago. We support increasing emphasis on individual candidates as opposed to strictly party and party figurehead options. And the other point was we felt that a referendum should only be held after a trial run, after the voting has had one opportunity to show itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Mr. Hawk, is Mr. Hawk here? Okay, so we'll go to, is he? Yes, Matthew Hawk. Okay. Mr. Charbonneau, Joël Charbonneau, et Mr. Julien Potvin Bernal. Mr. Potvin Bernal. Bienvenue, Monsieur Charbonneau. Allez-y.
Welcome, Mr. Charbonneau. Go ahead, please. I'm here to tell you that personally, I support the first past the post system. I'm also here to deplore the fact that there has been very little consultation. I come from Grenville, Prescott Russell. There has been very little consultation, and when we heard about it, only about 20 people showed up. For such a drastic change that will impact the future of our democracy, there should be a referendum. Thank you.
Est-ce que M. Clive Doucette est ici? Je l'invite à passer au micro numéro 1. Et M. Potvin, à vous, M. Potvin Bernal.
I'm Bernal. I wrote this in the seat, so hopefully it is coherent. I'd like to talk more about the actual system, and I personally support a PR system, but I want to gloss over that quickly. We can talk about something else. On that matter, though, I think a variation of STV would work very well in terms of being a flexible expression of a voter's stance. It's a very complex opinion you're trying to present in a ballot, and allowing, for instance, a ballot that has all the parties listed with all the candidates of each party and ranking amongst everybody seems to be quite a flexible way of expressing that view. Also, a variation of that would work for the Canadian geography, obviously. But regarding the actual system, I mean, you've listened to many witnesses throughout the summer, experts in the matter that know a lot more about the system than all of us sitting here, most likely. And that is the point why I want to talk about the referendum issue, why a referendum is not necessarily fitting for this topic, because the issue we're talking about here is to institute a system that reflects voter views and shouldn't be, that both sides of the topic are not necessarily equal in the sense that it's arguably more of an objective debate than a subjective debate. I think it would be disrespectful to the work of the whole committee and all the witnesses that spoke to you if the 99% of Canadians who aren't in these rooms get off their couch and go vote in a referendum in a black and white manner, yes or no, where the issues are very much more complex than that. So it's an impossible task to formulate a question that can reflect that full gradient. I know a lot of people have taken flack, for instance, Professor Dennis Pilon, for suggesting that voters might be ignorant on these matters, but it's a truth and it's not a shameful one, that you might not know as much as everybody sitting here and all the witnesses that spoke to you. If a referendum is the matter of unanimity in the committee, then perhaps it's fair to have one and have as much education as you possibly can and engage everyone. So if you do have a referendum, you can have a coherent outcome to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Potvin Bernal. Mr. Doucette, nice to have you here tonight. Clive Doucette, the councillor and writer.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Yes, I am. I'm not used to the refined atmosphere of Parliament Hill. City Hall is more my bag, so welcome. If I'm a little rough, I hope you'll forgive me. I want to make two very simple points. The first one is about referendum. Remember, we brought in NAFTA. I don't remember any referendum. Seemed to be we could cope with that. Second thing is, if there is a referendum, the best way to kill it is do what you're doing now. Ask people to talk about what choice, what kind of system they want. The whole thing will dissolve into conflict and first past the post and this and mixed proportionality, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to have a referendum, make it really simple. Do you think we need electoral reform, yes or no? And I'll tell you, you'll get the response, it'll be yes. We need electoral reform. And we need it because most Canadians are disenfranchised. 60% of Canadians in the last several elections were not represented in the House of Commons. And that creates tremendous illegitimacy among the people. People did not really believe in the government because they didn't represent the majority of Canadians. So we need to have a system, and I don't really care what you choose, that represents the majority of Canadians. The second thing I'd like to talk about is who wins. Like, I was a politician, and I know you guys don't sit here unless you win. You've got to win at the end of the day. I had that lesson impressed upon me in the last election. So who wins? Well, there are a whole bunch of people who win. The Canadian people win, because we get to, the majority of Canadians are left of center. 60% plus are left of center. So who does that win around the table? Well, people mention the Greens, the New Democrats. The biggest winners are the National Governing Party, the Liberals. They're the biggest winners because they will always have the biggest chunk of that 60%. And that will guarantee that Mr. Trudeau will be Prime Minister for life. So I don't think he was being unthoughtful in saying, promising it's the last first past the post. He will be Prime Minister for life because coalition governments will be the order of the day, and he will lead the coalition. It's that simple. And you look around the world, Sweden, Finland, Germany, you see the coalition governments. I know I think the Swedish government had one majority government in the last 50 years. The Swedes seem to do okay. I think we can do okay. So anyway, Nathan, everybody, glad to see you here. Hope I didn't disturb anyone's place in the world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doucette. Mr. Cardozo and Mr. Lamarche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hard to come after Clive Doucette, although I'm not sure I agree with everything you said. Every party comes to an end at some point. I have 3 points I want to. Sorry, it's just the truth. I just have 3 points I want to make. The first is I want to urge you to, when you make your report and put forward a system, that you talk about the pluses and minuses, the benefits and the downsides of any system you put forward. I say that because a lot of the debate that happens around this is people talk about one system or another as if it is perfect and don't talk about the imperfections. You are dealing with a bunch of really complex systems that have pluses and minuses. At the end of the day, you'll pick one as you balance it all out. So I urge you to be honest with Canadians about that. Tell them about the positives and the negatives of the system you put forward. I happen to support proportional representation, but it is far from a perfect system. I think a little more perfect than our current system, which hasn't served us all that bad, but which I agree is somewhat antiquated. The second point I want to make is the need to reform our political culture. That goes beyond the mechanics of our system. If we go to proportional representation, we're going to have forever minority governments. It becomes really important for parties to be able to work together. And I think that we will be changing from an adversarial system to a collaborative system. I want to remind you of the motion that you passed this week in the House of Commons on Yazidi women and girls. It was a tremendous motion put forward by the Conservative Party, supported by the other parties, and then supported by the government. But what happened was a negotiation on the floor of the House of Commons and behind the scenes to come together and form a motion that everybody was able to work with. The Yazidi motion should really be the gold standard about how government can and should be done. So I urge you to do that more and to certainly start practicing that soon. I would suggest that the third quick point is just in terms of decorum in the House of Commons. I'd urge you to adopt the Green Party approach to a question period, which is when the leader of the Green Party stands up to make a question, to put forward a question, her party doesn't stand up and applaud and heckle during that period. I noticed that the Liberals have followed that recently over the spring. I think that's tremendous, and I urge the other parties. What you do in question period really changes how people look at politics and government. Thanks.
I just add that no one knows how difficult that is. Controlling my caucus.
I'd invite Teresa Legrand to the mic, and now it's time for Mr. Lamarche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. En septembre 2011, un député à l'Assemblée.
A member at the National Assembly of Quebec in 2011 says we have 30 months before the next election, and so we have time to do what all parties have wanted to do, establish proportional voting. Mr. Gérard Dutel said that at the National Assembly in 2011, September 2011. We had a quote from Mr. Duceppe, Mr. Bob Ray, Mr. Jason Kenney, who support proportional representation. Mr. Harper and Mr. Fangen wanted to get rid of first past the post.
Reality of Canada and the need for voter equality. We can have more competition and choice in cities, while with a 15% top-up, we do not need to change the boundaries of rural ridings. In September 2007, a Strategic Council poll found that 47% of respondents knew nothing about the proposed reform of Ontario MMP, 41% were somewhat informed, while only 12% were informed. We are taxpayers and citizens, and we simply deserve an equal and effective vote. Referendum advocates often say, it is our voting system, so we deserve a say. Well, if it's our voting system, it would give us an equal and effective vote. I want their voices to matter. I want their voices to matter every election. The referendum advocates can't say the same about my voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eric McCabe, please, to mic number 2. And we'll hear now from Ms. Legrand.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to add my voice to the chorus of thank yous. I've had the opportunity to attend a few of your sessions, and I know you've worked very hard. So today, what I want to do is just address a few points about representative democracy, which is the exercise we're engaged in. We have a representative democracy. We will have one at the end of this, regardless of the system. Myself, I consider myself to be a nonpartisan Canadian. I've supported various elements of the platforms of various parties. I don't belong to a political party, which I think really puts me solidly in the majority of Canadians, perhaps not the majority of people in this room. I'm an engaged, nonpartisan person. So when I look at your committee, I'm pretty sure that you're all members of political parties. I like the way that you've changed it so that the organization of the committee is proportional rather than representing the results of the first past the post election. But still, you're all party members. You're a minority. Now, as MPs, I believe that you all operate as if you represent everyone in your riding, regardless of whether or not they voted for you. And I hope that that's what you take to this committee and to your role in this committee, that you represent all Canadians, the vast majority of whom are not party members. Okay. So all Canadians are represented by an MP. We've talked a lot about people feeling disenfranchised. Everybody's represented. Anybody who walks into one of your constituency offices, I would hope, is going to be treated equally to any other Canadian that walks in. You're going to help them if they have something that's within your purview. But they don't all feel like they're represented because their vote didn't count in the last election. And I think that's very legitimate, that on the one hand, yes, everybody has a representative, but a majority of Canadians really don't feel represented. So of these nonpartisan Canadians, okay, most of them probably don't have electoral reform at the top of their list of things that they're really, really concerned about. But I think that most Canadians, and poll after poll has shown, that they do want to have a better system. And we're counting on you to deliver the better system for the Canadians that really just want to have a better, more collaborative government. And I really hope that you come up with a solution that's better, that we can all live with.
Thank you.
And that will be a big improvement.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Legrand, I'd invite Daniel Horn to mic number 1 while we listen to Mr. McCabe.
Ready?
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to mention that I've lived in Canada since 1973, and for about 40% of that time, I've lived in rural ridings. And my experience with both provincial and federal elections during that time has led me gradually but inevitably to that the case for changing our electoral system is so strong that I would be extremely disappointed if this committee does not make a recommendation to Parliament that our voting system design should, and I'll quote from the Law Commission report, To the extent that it is practicable, create a legislature that closely mirrors the political preferences of the electorate, instead of one that is overly generous to the party that wins a plurality of the vote, rewarding it with a legislative majority disproportionate to its share of the vote. We have a representative democracy. Most citizens do not have the time to research, study, discuss, and come to rational conclusions on the issues that we must collectively deal with if we are to live together without serious conflict. Parliamentarians are elected to carry out these responsibilities on our behalf. The majority of voters in the 2015 election voted for parties that included electoral reform in their platforms. Any change to our first-past-the-post system is not irreversible. Parties opposed to change are free to make change back to first-past-the-post a major campaign promise in the next election. If this committee honors the principles of effectiveness and legitimacy and local representation, it must recommend to Parliament that a proportional representation system that would best suit our country's federal structure and geographical reality be in place for the 2019 federal election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCabe, would Colin Betts come to mic number 2, please? Mr. Horn, go ahead for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm presenting a new voting system, proportional seat distribution, or PSD. It maximizes party proportionality in Parliament without compensatory seats nor larger ridings. With PSD, voters mark a single X for their candidate like now. Once all polling results are in, total votes for each party and independent candidate are calculated. Independent candidates with more votes than any other candidate in their riding receive their riding seat as now. But total votes for each party are used to divide all remaining seats among the parties, minimizing over- and underrepresentation in Parliament. Having calculated each party's seat count, seats are automatically assigned so that each riding is represented by the candidate of the party with the most outstanding success in the riding. In creating this new system, I've strived to ensure it is principled, impartial, internally consistent, and robust enough to provide suitable results even in odd and unlikely voter scenarios. I have successfully simulated PSD provincially and nationally. When applied in each province and territory separately for the 2015 federal election, PSD shows great regional proportionality, a Gallagher Index composite below 2%. PSD calculations are fully automatable and thus rapid, under 2 minutes on my old laptop. Results are maximally proportional, and since parties receive seats by popular support, when your candidate does not win your riding, your vote can still help your party get a seat in another riding. In simulations, over 98% of votes decide Parliament. I have written a comprehensive description of this new voting system with design justifications and extended examples. I'm happy to share it with anyone interested. I ask this committee to give proportional seat distribution serious consideration. No compensatory members of Parliament, no bigger ridings, and 39% is 39%. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Hodgson, please. But first, we'll hear from Mr. Betts.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just scratched out a few notes myself. I just want to make a couple of observations. One is about the strangeness of changing the system of election for the House of Commons while we continue to see the continuation of an unelected, unaccountable upper house. You know, while I'm encouraged that members of Parliament are discussing electoral reform, I hope that this discussion will continue and eventually look at both houses of Parliament. Direct accountability to Canadians by the Senate can only come through an election of senators. Otherwise, why do we have them? And I hope that work does continue to move us towards a democratic upper house. Frankly, it'd be a great place to look at proportional representation. Another consideration that I would want to raise is with regards to voter turnout. whatever the ease of the first past the post electoral system, a system that sees more than 40% of citizens not casting a vote, not 60% casting, but 40% that do not, raises concerns about the legitimacy of that very system. If first past the post was such a success, we wouldn't be looking for alternatives. We're a mature democracy. And let's be frank, 39% of Canadians supporting a governing party, when 60% of Canadians come out to vote, means that 25% of Canadian citizens are actually electing a government. So let's not be afraid to be bold. And finally, I have one other thought, which is this is actually the worst way to have a conversation. I'm sitting here talking to you, you're sitting here talking at me, as opposed to talking in groups and coming to a form of consensus. I don't know what other meetings have been like, but I hope that at the end of your sessions that you have and that you will continue to talk to and engage Canadians one-on-one or in groups, because I think that your experiences across the country as elected members of Parliament and from hearing from Canadians from coast to coast to coast would be very beneficial for us to hear, and I think that our ideas would be very, very beneficial for you to hear in a more conversational format. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'd ask Mr. Brett Hodnett to come to mic number 2. Mr. Hodgson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have a list to read to begin with. The Canadian flag, Medicare, repatriation of the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, free trade, votes for women, the Fair Elections Act, and most recently, assisted dying. These are all examples of legislation that have had a profound effect on Canadians and have been passed without a referendum. I ask those who have been proposing a referendum, would Canada be a better place if we had had a referendum on all of these issues? Some of these issues, such as Medicare, might not have passed. I was around. I remember it was a very divisive debate. The Canadian flag was a very divisive, nasty debate at the time. But really, what is there about this issue that makes it so special that it needs a referendum when so much other important legislation has not required? And I also wonder about people suggesting that this is a profound and disastrous change to our Canadian electoral system when the committee hasn't actually recommended anything yet. So I'm going to wait for the committee to recommend something. I hope very much that they will recommend a system which will do a better job of fairly and accurately representing the diversity of opinions and concerns of everyone in our Parliament. And I think it's not very hard to do better than first past the post. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marlene Kohler. Mr. Hodnett, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I strongly support switching to a system of proportional representation. I don't feel like I'm represented in this country, and it would be really liberating to actually have that change. I did an informal survey of my family and friends, and more than 50% of them routinely vote strategically for parties they don't believe in. And there's also a handful who don't vote at all because they don't feel it makes a difference in their riding. And it really makes, you get quite disillusioned and cynical with this system. So I really hope you'll recommend a system of proportional representation. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan Hawk. If you could come to mic number 2, please. Thank you. Can you adjust the mic yourself there, or would you like some help? Yeah, perfect. Okay. Ms. Kohler, go ahead.
Thank you. Like others, I thank you for your work and the opportunity to speak. I don't have a formal presentation, but I thought I should register the things I agree with, the things I don't, and sit down. I agree that we should continue to have a representative democracy. And for me, that has implied a party system, and therefore I would like to see voters
vote for the vision of a party that they see put before them, and that they be able to hold that party accountable in some manner. I think it's clearly important for elected representatives to maintain contact with their electorate, and I think almost everyone I've heard speak, no matter what they think of first past the post or proportional representation, expresses that kind of view. I think that party proportionality is important, and for that reason I support proportional representation. I would say historically, if one can say historically, I preferred mixed member proportional. I'm certainly open to other models, and I think that your committee is in the best position, having heard from the most number of Canadians and experts, to shape a proposal that reflects your best sense of what you've heard and what you understand, and I think that's what we elect you for. So I wish you well in that decision making. I do want to say that I am opposed to a referendum. I don't believe that there are many things on which there should be a referendum. I don't think most of us chose first past the post. I think we rather inherited that when we were a two-party system, and I don't think we have to choose this any more than the many important decisions that you're called upon as our representatives to make in every parliament. So I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kohler. Before we go to Mr. Hawk, I'd like Mr. Gulen to come to mic number 1. Gullen, yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Hawk.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Can everyone hear me? I'm hard of hearing, so I don't know. Perfect. Wonderful. My name is Nathan Hauk. I have a strong interest in electoral reform, and I would like to express my sincere thanks to you for your work and to present my views for some form of proportional representation. First, I would like to argue against a referendum to resolve this issue. Referenda are fraught with their own challenges, as we've heard, among them what constitutes legitimacy by way of turnout, the wording of the question, and the threshold that must be met to grant a change in the electoral system. I believe Canadians will hold judgment on the electoral system when casting their ballot in a general election, where they will weigh this issue with others. One core criticism of referendum is that it undermines the authority we invest in you, our elected officials. If a ballot is believed to be skewed towards one party, I believe that voters, offended by such unfairness, will make their views known. Second, you have heard that proportional representation results in a diluted relationship between an elected representative and the voter. But a dilution of the relationship with proportional representation need not be the result. Parties in building lists may have consideration of a regional nature. Mixed member systems also afford local representation while allocating overall seats based upon the party's proportional share of the vote. As well, lists also have the benefit of encouraging greater election of women and people of diverse backgrounds. Third, I want to suggest that preferential ballots may result in a diluted result of what many voters actually want, their will to be reflected. It may privilege certain parties while resulting in more majority government. Fourth, while first past the post has resulted in stable governments in many cases, we have had minority governments fairly recently, and the sky did not fall. While there was some uncertainty, there was bargaining between parties, which, given that parties represent varying views, has at times provided more compromises. Fifth, it has been argued that proportional representation may result in massive party fragmentation. This can be reduced through the use of a threshold for representation, as we see in Germany with its mixed member system. Finally, I submit that proportional representation, by making every vote count, encourages collaboration. It's important that first past the post, and its typically winner-take-all result, rewards more adversarial relationships between parties. Indeed, I personally feel that much of the drive for the reform, or for reform generally, is based on the desire for a less adversarial system. Under proportional representation, there is much evidence to suggest that voters will punish parties they perceive to be overly adversarial. In conclusion, many Canadians would be pleased if, after every election, The public discourse switched over from who has won and what can be done to usher in change in 4 years' time to what the parties working together will do today to work together and appeal to a wider range of voters. Coalition governments, supported by proportional representation, better reflect the will of voters, not only on election night, but throughout a government's term as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawk. Mr. Christopher Mahan. Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Okay, Mr. Gullen.
Thank you. Having in the late 60s been, for the translator, I'm skipping the first two paragraphs and the fourth one. Having in the late 60s been part of a merger which gave me a family connection to Germany, I have given some thought several times since then to proportional representation. I have concluded that it is an oxymoron. There is no representation at all, and the resulting governments, wherever it has been tried, give disproportionate weight to the lunatic fringe. And Elizabeth, I do not include the Green Party in that last group. However, having the best system doesn't mean that it can't be improved. The first past the post system has three chronic problems. A party can gain a 5-year mandate when 60% of the vote was for the opposing parties. There is a decreasing voter turnout, and finally, there is that ubiquitous feeling that a vote for a losing candidate doesn't count at all in the new parliament. Borrowing from my German connection for the second, I propose 2 electoral changes which just might cure all 3 problems. The first change could be called the proportional mandate. The latest date for the following election would be fixed by Elections Canada as a function of the proportion of eligible voters voting for the winning party's candidates. I am currently suggesting that the mandate would range from 1 year with 25% or less of the electorate to the full 5 years for 51%. Skip to the, for the translator, skip to the second page. For the second change, we note that Germany only uses proportional representation for some of the seats in the Bundestag. Borrowing from that, while noting that many, if not most, Canadians vote for the party, or at least a sexy party leader, rather than the candidate, I propose that in addition to the current 315 or 16 votes in the House, there would be up to 100 party platform votes. Each leader of a party registered for the preceding election would have a block of votes equal in number to the percentage of the eligible electors voting for his party. Translator, skip the next paragraph. The final, with these simple electoral changes, every vote cast would count, whether for a winning candidate or not. Actually, your vote would count many times. Firstly, to lengthen, if your party wins, the mandate of the government, and secondly, every time the leader of your party casts the platform vote in the House. Campaign teams, even for losing candidates, would have a simple goal: get out every possible vote, and would be inspired to fight on even when the local situation was clearly hopeless.
Thank you.
And best of all, we wouldn't have the complaints from BC that the election is over before our polls close.
Thank you. And,
thank you.
Thank you for your consideration for the interpreters. I'm sure they appreciate it. Ms. Anne-Marie Balasubramanian. Go ahead, Mr. Mahan.
Thank you. Nobody in Canada right now knows what is going to ultimately be proposed to replace the current electoral system. Nobody in this room knows what is ultimately going to be proposed.
That's true.
So nobody can claim that whatever is ultimately proposed has the consent of the Canadian electorate. If this government seeks to impose whatever it concocts behind closed doors without a referendum, they will cast the Canadian electoral system into disrepute. They will destroy its legitimacy. If it is important that the Canadian electoral system look legitimate, and right now it's the envy of the world, it is. We're very lucky to be in Canada. We're very lucky to live under this electoral system. If the
about Canada is that everyone gets to have their say.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
If this government imposes whatever it contrives behind closed doors without a referendum, it will look to many like a shameless attempt to rig the system. If this government believes in what it ultimately proposes, it should have the guts to put it to a referendum. So I ask every member of this committee to please go back to the government to protect the legitimacy of the Canadian electoral system and demand a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Schoeller? Mr. Schoeller? But now we'll go to Ms. Balasubramanian.
Excellent pronunciation of my
Well, you
last
have a name like Scarpaleggia, you know.
I know. I was like, oh, he's going to know how to do it. There's a lot of passionate arguments being presented here, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak and also for the hard work that you've been doing all across Canada. I came to listen, but I just stood to comment because I want to echo the sentiments of my fellow citizens here that have said, firstly, that it's not necessarily, like, we don't necessarily need a referendum. I mean, I feel that, I want to express my opinion that I trust your ability as members of Parliament to make that decision on our behalf. I also think that the time in history for first past the post has passed. We're more than a two-party system where first past the post best works for that system. And I think the diversity of our country is represented in our multi-party system, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's okay. I don't necessarily think it's a fringe. We should worry so much about the fringe because we're a country that's changing, and I think that a multi-party electoral system is something that we should strive for to represent the multi-party system that we have. And I also think that this multi-party electoral system, if we change with electoral reform, is something that would benefit not just one individual party, not necessarily just the Green Party or the NDP, as I heard some others say, but also certainly before the amalgamation of the Conservative Party, it could have benefited either the PC Conservatives or the Alliance. So instead of forcing parties to amalgamate in order to win the strategic vote, I think this would be a great alternative. And the most important thing is the voters stand to gain because their vote would count. I would lastly like to say that the strategic voting of the past couple of years has made me feel like I've been at the horse races betting on odds of what could happen. I'd love for that to stop. So if you did decide to go with electoral reform, I would be much appreciating that. And I guess the last thing I'll say to close is I think you have a great opportunity here. And at the risk of sounding cliche, I think great moments are born from great opportunity. And with the 150th anniversary coming up, I think a change would be amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd ask Mr. Adam Hublin to come to mic number 1. And now we'll hear from Mr. Schoeller.
Yes, I didn't come to speak this evening. It was only when I thought there was something missing as the discussion took place that I put my name down. And those in favor of change seem to have gone into a lot of detail about how that was going to work, but those in favor of the referendum didn't tell us how a referendum would work. Would it be 50% plus one across the country? Would we do it by province, et cetera, et cetera? It seems to me it's incumbent upon them to show that there was something workable and something that would create confidence in the Canadian public that the right system was being addressed. And I wonder whether in your deliberations across the country you have had any representatives of the point of view of the referendum come to you with details about when and how many and percentages, 50% plus one, etc.
Well, we've had the subject has come up quite a bit in hearings, both on the road and here in Ottawa. Some have said we should follow the New Zealand example of 2 referenda prior to a change, then one after the change to to give approval or not to that change. Some have said, for example, that the 60% threshold in the BC referendum was arbitrary and too high. So to some extent, yes, people have touched on the details, but it's revolved mostly around the principle of a referendum.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
One last thing was we were in Prince Edward Island, where of course they're holding what they call a plebiscite later this month, but it's actually a referendum on electoral reform. And so we had a number of people who are both administering that referendum and they had a previous one on the same issue several years ago on different formats. So they presented both of these administrators on how those have worked.
Thank you. And finally, last but not least, Mr. Hublin, please.
Okay, thank you. My name's Adam Hubin. I'm finishing up my PhD at the University of Ottawa here in town. I'm studying biology. I look at algae in lakes, so it really doesn't make me an electoral reform specialist in any way. But I am very much in favor of proportional representation, and I think what we have right now, currently, the first past the post, it's very clear that it's archaic. It's an archaic form, and I think we can modernize. There's lots of examples, and I'll leave that largely up to the experts to decide which one might be the best form. As far as the question of a referendum, well, I'm here. This is my referendum right now. I'm speaking out at these public open houses. I also did vote in the last election, and I believe all but one party had electoral reform as a key platform issue. So I think that it's there. I think we can move on. The only arguments I've heard, like, I respect all the opinions, but the best argument I've heard tonight for first past the post is that, you know, we've had stable government and it's been working so far. Well, that's not really inspirational. And I think that we have a stable government despite the electoral system. And I think we can move on and experiment. I'm a scientist. Let's experiment. Let's have some perspective. We can change it again. It's not the end. It's not the last form. There might be something better. Canada is in a very unique position as well. We have this large geography with isolated, well, not isolated, but pockets of dense population. We probably have to come up with something that's might be rather unique or novel. So I hope that we can, you know, I trust you. If you have questions about algae, I hope you trust my expertise, and I'm going to basically trust this panel that's been working on this, doing a great job. I love that it's proportional and across all the parties. But I'm going to trust your final decision. I'll let you whittle out the final details. So I hope you can take the opinion of the electorate, though, that they do want change. I think it's quite apparent here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hublin, and I'd like to thank everyone here tonight and those who came to the mic for your considered views, and also for respecting the time limits, which allowed for a full and orderly discussion. To the committee members, we meet again tomorrow morning at 7:45. Alors on se revoit demain.
We meet again tomorrow at 7:45. There will be coffee and maybe something else on Queen Street, so we can definitely go there on foot. So 7:45 tomorrow morning. Thank you all for your comments and for your participation. And
we will hope that you will be able to read our report quite attentively. That we'll table at the latest the 31st of December. Thank you. The meeting has come to an end.